Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I was down in Santa Clara earlier today on Thursday, and it was the first time we've seen Robert Saleh open his mouth and talk since he became the 49ers defensive coordinator again 4 months ago. First time we've also had an opportunity to ask questions of Clay Kubiak and Brant Boyer. So we'll get to some of what each person said. But first, this video is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery. Its first location in Moraga with a wide selection of beer styles, also tasty bites. I was just there having a little hiking planning meeting with some of my neighbors. We're going to do a little hiking expedition in June. And so we got together and kind of discussed things over a cold one at Canyon Club Brewery in Moraga. It's also located at the Livery in Danville. It's a new location. So great spot to hang out, have a beer, have some tasty bites, and also plan a summer activity. Okay, so Canyon Club Brewery, check it out if you get the opportunity. All right, so Robert Saleh is back as 49ers defensive coordinator. One of the first things that kind of came to mind while I asked him about why he came back to the 49ers. And because one of my thoughts was, I talk a lot more about this on the 49ers Talk podcast with myself and Jennifer Lee Chan, but I asked Robert about when he got fired by the Jets, he went to work for Matt LaFleur. Was there any temptation not to go back to the 49ers because that's where he kind of built his reputation and got on the radar of being a head coaching candidate based on the performance of the 49ers defense in 2019 and 2020. And he said that he just feels indebted to the organization because after 2017 and after 2018, when things weren't going well, and, there was a small percentage of people, I think, calling for his head and saying he should be fired and replace him with whatever, some other defensive coordinator. The 49ers stuck by him, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan. And so he said that he did not have to be reminded about any of that when he became available and he started talking to Kyle Shanahan because he says he remembers that every day. And so he comes back to the 49ers and he comes back under a situation where 49ers lost a lot of defensive players, and they knew they were going to lose a lot of defensive players. And so I kind of, tongue in cheek, but I guess not really, refer to the 2024 draft. I'm sorry, the 2025 draft, the draft that just happened a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. I refer to that as the Robert Saleh draft. And yes, the 49ers did take defensive players in each of the first five selections that they had. But one of the interesting things that Saleh said was that that's not the way it was planned. They stayed true to their board. And there were times as the 49ers were coming up on their draft pick where the top guy on the board was an offensive player. And then when they got closer to the 49ers making the pick, that offensive player was gone and they ended up going with a defensive player. And probably the one area where I think it might be obvious that this happened was with Upton Stout, the cornerback. Charles Grant, the offensive tackle from William and Mary, he was on the board. 49ers have shown some interest or had shown some interest in him. But right before the 49ers went on the clock, the Las Vegas Raiders took Charles Grant. So there's an opportunity right there. There's a chance that he was somebody that they targeted, but instead go with Upton Stout, the nickelback. And so basically what um, Robert Saleh was saying is that the 49ers decided not to reach for any of their draft picks, that they would be taking an offensive player. That offensive player wasn't there, so they didn't reach for the next offensive player at that position. They went with the next player on their board, and it just so happened, at least according to Robert Saleh and John Lynch and everybody else, it just so happened that kind of lined up that way where 49ers were able to check off needs as well as get the player that they had rated as the next best player on their board. So Robert Saleh back as 49ers defensive coordinator. One other thing he said, it's kind of hard to quantify or hard to explain, but he said that when he comes back to the 49ers, it will be this kind of mixture of the stuff he did with the 49ers back 5 years ago, coupled with some of the new stuff the 49ers have brought in since he's been gone, as well as the stuff they did with the New York Jets in his 4 seasons there, as well as some new stuff. So he said, they have some new cool schemes and nuances to their defense, and he's excited about it because his belief, his goal is to stay, and I'm not sure how you do this, but he said stay 2 years ahead of where the offenses are. And obviously, teams are changing, teams are making adjustments every offseason. But Robert Saleh said, his goal as defense coordinator is to envision where offenses are going and have a plan of attack in place to stop those offenses before they even get to that spot. So that was Robert Saleh. Special teams coordinator Brant Boyer comes in with trying to bring a whole new mentality to special teams. And I think it shows in the way the 49ers approached the free agent signing period with the veterans they brought in, as well as some of the draft picks. I think Marquis Siegel is a guy, a safety selected in the fifth round who could make an immediate impact on special teams with his versatility, his speed. So look for him on coverage units. Also, Junior Bergen, return man from Montana. And the connection there is Brant Boyer, the special teams coordinator. His son is a kicker in Montana. So he's watched a lot of Montana football, and he thinks that Junior Bergen has the hands to secure those catches, field those punts, but also the decision making and the ability to set up blockers and make would-be tacklers miss. But the big takeaway as far as special teams go, in addition to trying to develop a mindset on special teams where the players want to play special teams and they see it as a reward to play special teams. The biggest takeaway was that it sure sounds like he is a fan of Jake Moody. He said there wasn't a coach in the NFL that he knows of that did not have Jake Moody ranked as the number one kicker coming out in the 2023 draft. And so he just feels like he was kind of dealt a bad blow last year with the injury, the high ankle sprain, and then coming back from that. He was, what was he, 13 of 14, I think it was, before the injury, and then was 11 of 20, 11 of 20 after the injury. So 49ers do have a tryout kicker, undrafted rookie by the name of Kenneth Amenderes from Louisiana. He was a Lou Groza Award winner. But Kyle Shanahan said some time ago the 49ers thought that they would be bringing in a veteran kicker to compete with Jake Moody. That hasn't occurred yet. No indication that that will occur. I did ask Brant Boyer, after he gave kind of a glowing review of Jake Moody, if he expects Jake Moody to be the kicker when the season starts. And he said he does, but it's contingent on how the offseason training camp and the preseason games go. But I mean, just kind of reading the tea leaves and projecting my thoughts into how I read what Brant Boyer was saying, I certainly think that Jake Moody will start the season off as the 49ers kicker. Then it's a matter of the confidence. Can he start off hot, stay hot? What happens if he hits a rough patch? All that stuff. So that'll all kind of play out over time. And then the other coordinator who spoke was Clay Kubiak. Clay Kubiak has been on the 49ers staff for a while. He's kind of worked his way up the food chain. He's been a passing game coordinator. Now he is the offensive coordinator. And the only other time Kyle Shanahan has had that title on his staff turned out pretty well for Mike McDaniel as he kind of parlayed that into becoming the Miami Dolphins head coach. I don't know if being a head coach is in Clay Kubiak's future, but the son of Gary Kubiak has been around the game his entire life. He says nothing really changes with his role. It's a non-play calling role, but he does design the offense, presents the game plan, and Kyle Shanahan makes those calls. But last year, if you recall, Kyle Shanahan did a couple of things that he had never done before. In the preseason, he let Clay Kubiak call plays. And then when the 49ers were out of it in the regular season, in the Week 18 game at Arizona, Kyle Shanahan, again, had Clay Kubiak call the plays. So Kyle Shanahan is not ceding the play calling. He's still going to be the play caller for the 49ers. But Kubiak said that that experience was beneficial for him because now he can kind of think the way through it. You know, when he's putting together a game plan for Shanahan, he can kind of think through it as a play caller, someone who's had that experience. So those are some of the key takeaways. Um, 49ers talking a little bit about Christian McCaffrey. Now that the 49ers have, a draft pick the last 2 years, Isaac Grenda, who showed some good things as a rookie, and also Jordan James, the fifth round draft choice running back from Oregon. Now that the 49ers have a couple of guys behind Christian McCaffrey, does it mean that they're really going to try to go running backs by committee and lessen Christian McCaffrey's workload? Not necessarily. What was kind of interesting was that when Kubiak was asked about the workload of Christian McCaffrey, he chose to focus more on the offseason, training camp, and practice reps, limiting those and not necessarily talking about limiting the amount of touches he gets in a game. Yes, there might be some of that. Yes, maybe the 49ers feel like maybe they have more leeway now, more insurance behind Christian McCaffrey to do that, to sprinkle in Garendo, sprinkle in Jordan James. But it certainly sounds like if Christian McCaffrey is healthy and he's determined to return to the form of 2023, doesn't sound like it's a huge, huge priority for the 49ers to take him off the field more than what they deem necessary. So that's the rundown from this day in Santa Clara as the rookies arrive, the 11 draft picks, the six undrafted rookies that they've signed, and a few tryout guys. Don't have the names of those tryout guys quite yet, but so a lot of the rookies spoke with the media today. But kind of the big takeaway was after 4 months of having Robert Saleh and Brant Boyer on staff, and after 4 months of Clay Kubiak being the offensive coordinator in title, they spoke to the media for the first time, and each of them had some interesting things to say. So anyway, thanks for watching this video. Appreciate it. Leave a thumbs up, a like, a comment down below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And that is it for now.